Unaware the single mum he declared dead was alive, he married his billionaire mistress. What she did at his wedding destroyed him. Brandon Mitchell stood at the altar in his $1,000 tuxedo, about to marry Vivienne Ashford, the billionaire heiress who had everything, money, power, and the man she stole. But there was one small problem. The single mum he declared dead 14 months ago, the woman whose life insurance funded his new empire. The mother of the 2 children sitting in the front pew, who barely remembered her face, was alive, and she was standing in the back of that wedding chapel, holding evidence that would destroy everything he built on her grave. He had no idea she survived the night he tried to kill her. No idea she crawled out of that wreckage with nothing but rage and a mother's love keeping her breathing. No idea she'd been watching, waiting, planning for this exact moment. His betrayal made headlines. His lies made him a hero. His tears made him a sympathetic widower. But her revenge was about to make him a prisoner, because when Maya Henderson walked through those cathedral doors, she wasn't coming to mourn. She wasn't coming to forgive. She wasn't coming to beg. She was coming to reclaim her children, expose his murderous betrayal, and watch the man who declared her dead lose everything. But how did a single mom with 2 babies survive a murder attempt that should have killed her? How did she stay hidden while he married his mistress and spent her life insurance? And what did she do at that wedding that didn't just stop the ceremony, but destroyed the man who tried to bury her? This is the story of a husband's ultimate betrayal, a billionaire's blind ambition, and a single mother's revenge that shocked the world. And it all started with a lie. Hello, family. Welcome back. Before we begin, I have a small but heartfelt request. Please subscribe. Your support keeps these stories alive. Every time you click that button, you're helping us share voices that deserve to be heard, stories that restore faith in justice. And in the comments, tell us where you're watching from. Because together, we're not just telling stories, we're keeping hope alive. 7 years earlier, Maya believed in fairy tales. She was 22, working as a pediatric nurse at St. Michael's Hospital, when she met Brandon at the annual charity gala. He was 27, charming, ambitious, with a smile that could melt ice. "You work with kids?" he asked, handing her a glass of champagne. Maya nodded, tucking a strand of dark hair behind her ear. "Pediatric ICU, someone has to fight for the little ones." Brandon's eyes softened in a way that made her heart skip. "That's beautiful. I'm trying to build something too. Affordable housing developments. Homes for families who've been priced out of the market." She fell for him that night. Not just for his looks or his words, but for what she thought was his heart. They married within a year. A small ceremony on the beach with the ocean breeze in her hair. Brandon whispered promises against her ear as the sun set behind them. "I'll take care of you forever. You'll never have to worry about anything." And for 4 years, he kept that promise. Maya gave up her nursing career when Sophie was born. Brandon insisted, "Stay home, be with our daughter. I'll provide everything." And he did. The house was beautiful. Dinners were warm. Date nights were romantic. When she got pregnant with Liam, Brandon kissed her belly every morning before work. "Our little man," he'd say, voice full of pride. But something shifted after Liam was born. Brandon started coming home later. His phone was always face down. When Maya tried to talk to him, he barely looked up from his laptop. One morning she made his favorite breakfast. Scrambled eggs with chives, bacon crispy the way he liked it, coffee with 2 sugars. She wore one of his old college shirts, hoping he'd smile the way he used to. "Morning," she said gently, setting the plate in front of him. Brandon scrolled through his phone without glancing up. He poured his own coffee, didn't touch the food. Maya tried again. "I thought maybe we could have breakfast together today. You've been working so hard." Brandon slammed his mug down. The coffee splashed onto the table. "Maya, please. I have a meeting in 20 minutes. I don't have time for this domestic fantasy." The words hit her like a slap. She froze, hands still holding the spatula. "It's been weeks since we've had a real conversation." He let out a short, bitter laugh. "You're counting now? That's cute." Maya swallowed the lump forming in her throat. "I'm not counting. I just miss you." Brandon finally looked up, but his eyes held nothing but irritation. "Miss me, Maya, I live here. I'm just busy building something real, not playing house while you change diapers and watch soap operas." Her lips parted, but no words came. She wanted to scream. She wanted to cry. Instead, she just nodded and turned back to the stove. Brandon grabbed his briefcase and walked out, the door closing behind him with a cold finality. Sophie toddled into the kitchen moments later, rubbing her sleepy eyes. "Mommy, why is Daddy always mad?" Maya knelt down and pulled her daughter into her arms, pressing a kiss to her forehead. "He's just stressed, baby. He still loves us." But even as she said it, she wasn't sure she believed it anymore. That night, Maya sat alone in the living room. The house was too big, too quiet. She stared at their wedding photo on the mantel. Brandon was kissing her forehead in the picture, whispering something that made her laugh. She barely recognized that man anymore. Her phone buzzed. It was Brandon, working late. "Don't wait up." She typed, "Okay, be safe," but didn't hit send. She already knew where he was. He'd been working late 3 times this week, and every time he came home, smelling faintly of expensive perfume that wasn't hers. Maya put the phone down and whispered to the empty room, "What happened to us?" 3 months later, Brandon attended a high-end investor dinner at the Rosewood Hotel downtown, the kind of place where appetizers cost more than Maya's grocery budget for a week. He wasn't there for the food. His real estate company was drowning in debt. Projects stalled. Investors pulling out. Banks calling daily. He needed capital fast, and he needed someone powerful enough to make his problems disappear. That's when she walked in. Vivienne Ashford. She wore a crimson dress that looked like it cost more than most people's cars. Her heels clicked against the marble floor with the confidence of someone who owned everything she touched. Diamonds glittered at her throat and wrists. When she extended her hand to Brandon, her eyes didn't just meet his. They evaluated him like a piece of property she was considering purchasing. "So you're Brandon Mitchell," she said, voice smooth and calculated. "The man turning failing projects into gold." Brandon chuckled, trying to match her confidence. "Guilty. And you must be the infamous Vivienne Ashford. I've read about your acquisitions." She smiled slightly, sipping her wine. "I prefer to call them rescues. Businesses on the verge of collapse that just need the right leadership and capital infusion." They talked for 3 hours. She laughed at his jokes, touched his hand just enough to make him feel desired, powerful, seen in a way Maya hadn't made him feel in years. When the dinner ended, Vivienne leaned close, her perfume expensive and intoxicating. "Call me. I think we could build something extraordinary together." She slipped her business card into his jacket pocket, her fingers lingering a moment too long. Brandon watched her walk away, and for the first time in months, he felt like he was winning again. From that night, she was in his head, and Maya began to fade from his heart. At home, Maya noticed everything changing. Brandon came home later and later. He started locking his phone. When she asked simple questions like, "How was your meeting?" he rolled his eyes, called her clingy, said she was suffocating him with her need for attention. Once when she tried to hug him from behind while he typed on his laptop, he shoved her hand away roughly. "Don't distract me, Maya. This is business. Not everything revolves around you." Her voice trembled. "You don't talk to me anymore, Brandon. You don't even look at me." He looked up then, cold and emotionless, maybe because there's nothing new to look at. The words cut deeper than any knife could. Maya stepped back, tears burning her eyes, but she swallowed them. She always did. She thought maybe if she was patient, loving, gentle enough, he'd come back to the man he used to be. She didn't know he was already gone. Brandon and Vivienne's business meetings turned into late dinners. Late dinners turned into hotel rooms. Vivienne wasn't just offering money. She was offering him a vision of himself he'd forgotten existed. "You're too smart to be living off your wife's contributions," she told him one night in her penthouse, city lights sparkling below them like stars. "You could be so much more if you weren't tied down to someone who doesn't understand ambition." Brandon swirled his whiskey, staring out at the skyline. "Maya has her family's connections. I can't just walk away without losing everything." Vivienne stepped closer, running a finger along his tie. "You don't need to walk away, Brandon." She paused, her eyes locking onto his with dangerous intent. Sometimes life gives you opportunities to start fresh. New wife, new fortune, new empire. He looked at her, confused at first. Then understanding dawned slowly across his face, and he didn't stop her when she kissed him. He didn't pull away when she whispered the unthinkable into his ear. And when she suggested a plan that would solve all his problems, make him a wealthy widower, and clear the path for their future together, Brandon didn't say no. He said, "How?" Back at home, Maya felt the distance turning into something darker, something she couldn't name but could feel in her bones. One evening she cooked his favorite meal. Steak medium rare, garlic mashed potatoes the way his mother used to make them, green beans with almonds. She set the table with candles, put on the dress he once said made her look beautiful. She waited. 7 o'clock came and went, 8, 9. Finally, at 11:30, Brandon walked through the door, reeking of perfume. Maya stood in the kitchen doorway, hope dying in her chest, but still clinging to the edges. "I made dinner. It's cold now, but I can reheat it." "Jesus, Grace," he snapped. "Stop trying so hard. It's pathetic." Her eyes glistened with unshed tears. "I'm your wife, Brandon. I'm trying to hold us together. Maybe that's the problem," he said, voice dripping with contempt. "You're always trying to talk, trying to fix, trying to care. It's exhausting, Maya." He poured himself a drink, not even glancing at the meal she'd spent hours preparing. "Maybe if you had something better to offer than pity and neediness, I'd actually want to come home." She couldn't hold it in anymore. The question she'd been terrified to ask finally broke free. "Are you seeing someone else?" Brandon looked at her, and instead of denial, instead of reassurance, he smirked. A cruel, satisfied smirk that told her everything. Would it matter? Her voice cracked. "Yes, it would destroy me." He shrugged, taking a long sip of his whiskey. "Then maybe stop looking for answers you can't handle, Maya." He walked past her toward the bedroom, leaving her shaking and silent in the doorway. The uneaten dinner growing colder on the table, but the worst was still coming. 2 weeks later, Brandon came home unusually cheerful. He kissed her forehead for the first time in months, poured 2 glasses of wine, and sat beside her on the couch. "I've been thinking," he said, his voice suddenly warm and caring. "We should update our life insurance policies. You know, just to be responsible. Cover the kids if anything ever happens to either of us." Maya blinked, surprised and cautiously hopeful. "Insurance?" "Yeah," he said casually, pulling out papers from his briefcase. "You drive a lot with the kids. Long highways. Bad weather sometimes. We should make sure Sophie and Liam are taken care of no matter what." He smiled, that charming smile that once made her fall in love with him. But something in his eyes felt wrong. Too rehearsed, too calm, too focused. She didn't question it. She wanted to believe this was him trying to be the husband and father he used to be. So she signed the papers. $2 million. Brandon as the sole beneficiary. Later that night, after he showered, his phone buzzed on the nightstand. Maya hesitated. She'd never been the kind of wife to snoop. But something deep inside her, some primal instinct screaming danger, told her to look. Her hands shook as she picked up the phone. The message was from a contact labeled, "V, once she's gone, you're free. We'll build an empire together. Everything we dreamed of." Maya's breath caught in her throat. The room spun. Her knees went weak, but she didn't drop the phone. She read it again and again, until the words burned into her mind like a brand. Once she's gone, they were planning something. Her husband, the man she gave 7 years of her life to, the father of her children, wanted her dead. Brandon stepped out of the bathroom, towel around his waist, hair damp. "What are you doing with my phone?" His voice was sharp, dangerous. Maya turned, pale and trembling. "Who's V? Who's Vivienne?" His jaw tightened. "You went through my phone." Her voice broke. "You're planning something." "Don't lie to me, Brandon." He stepped closer, his eyes cold and empty. "You think too much, Maya. That's always been your problem." "Tell me the truth," she cried, tears streaming down her face. "Are you going to hurt me?" He leaned in, face inches from hers, and whispered, "If I wanted to hurt you, you'd already know." She flinched. He smiled, slow, cruel, calculated. "Now go to bed. You're embarrassing yourself." He took his phone from her trembling hands and walked away, humming softly. Maya stood there, frozen, staring at the closed bedroom door. For the first time in her life, she wasn't scared of losing him. She was scared of what he was capable of. As thunder rolled outside, she whispered to herself, "He wants me gone." Rain fell in slow, heavy sheets 2 weeks later, painting the streets silver and slick. Maya sat at her vanity, staring at her reflection. Her face looked pale under the soft light, her eyes red and swollen from another night of silent tears. On the dresser sat a folded invitation to the charity fundraiser she was supposed to attend that evening. Her foundation's biggest event of the year. She should have been excited. Instead, her hands trembled as she clasped her necklace. From the doorway, Brandon appeared, sharp in a black suit, eyes glinting like glass. "You're still going?" Maya turned slowly. "It's my event. I can't just stay home." He leaned against the frame, arms crossed, watching her with that same calculating stare. "You look tired. Maybe you should rest. Let someone else handle it tonight." "I'll be fine," she said quietly, grabbing her clutch. He smiled, that same smooth, disarming smile that used to melt her heart. "If you say so." His voice had an odd calmness. Too calm, too deliberate. She could feel it in the air between them. Something was wrong. Something was about to happen. Maya kissed him lightly on the cheek and said, "I'll see you later." Brandon's lips twitched into a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Drive safe, Maya. The Pacific Coast Highway gets slippery in the rain." She froze for a second, her blood running cold. Then she nodded and walked out. Outside, her assistant Clara was waiting by the car, holding an umbrella over her head as thunder rolled in the distance. "Mrs. Mitchell, I already checked the car like you asked. Full tank. Everything looks good." Clara was 23, loyal, eager to help, always 3 steps ahead. "You sure you want to drive in this weather? I can go ahead and set things up at the venue if you want." Maya hesitated. Normally she'd drive herself, but the ache in her chest wouldn't go away. Something about Brandon's tone, his eyes, the way he mentioned the highway. It chilled her to the bone. She forced a smile. "Actually, Clara, why don't you take my car tonight? Make sure the caterers arrived on time. I'll follow in the company SUV." Clara looked confused but obedient. "Of course, Mrs. Mitchell." They switched keys. Maya watched as Clara climbed into her sleek black Mercedes, the one Brandon had personally taken to the mechanic 3 days ago for a routine check. Maya's gut twisted. She didn't know why, but her heart began to race. As Clara drove off into the storm, Maya followed behind in a smaller company vehicle, headlights cutting through the rain. The roads were nearly empty. Wind howled as they approached the Pacific Coast Highway, the road that curved dangerously above the dark ocean below. Maya's hands gripped the wheel tight as she watched the red taillights of her car shimmer ahead through the rain. Lightning cracked the sky, a white blinding flash. Then everything happened in seconds. A loud pop echoed through the storm. Clara's car swerved violently left, tires screeching against wet asphalt. The back end fishtailed wildly. Maya's heart stopped. No, 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 no. The car hit the guardrail. Metal screamed against metal. Then the rail gave way. Maya watched in absolute horror as her car with Clara inside, burst through the barrier and plunged off the cliff into the black waves below. "Clara!" she screamed. Without thinking, Maya slammed her brakes, jumped out into the pouring rain and ran to the edge. She looked down and saw nothing but bubbles and broken pieces of guardrail floating in the churning water. For a moment, the world went silent, except for the roaring sea. Then she saw it, the faint glow of headlights flickering underwater, sinking fast. She didn't hesitate. She climbed onto the broken barrier and leapt. The cold hit her like 1,000 knives. She gasped, choking as the current dragged her under. Salt water burned her eyes and lungs. Through the murky waves, she could just make out the shape of the sinking car. Maya fought toward it, pulling with everything she had. Her dress tangled around her legs, slowing her down, but she didn't stop. The car was almost gone, just the roof and part of a door still visible. She yanked at the handle. It wouldn't budge. She kicked hard, praying until finally it cracked open. Inside, Clara was unconscious, her face pale, lips blue. Maya's fingers shook as she unbuckled the seatbelt. Bubbles rushed out as she pulled Clara free into the open water. Her lungs screamed for air. Her body was going numb. But somehow she dragged Clara upward, kicking with the last of her strength until at last they broke the surface. The rain hadn't stopped. It slammed down like bullets, blinding her. Maya held Clara's head above water, gasping, coughing, crying. "Stay with me. Please, Clara, stay with me." She tried to swim toward shore, but the current was too strong. The waves pulled them toward the rocky coastline. By the time they reached land, both women were barely conscious. Maya crawled onto the wet rocks, dragging Clara beside her. In the distance, she could hear sirens, faint, far away. She tried to call out, but her voice was gone. The last thing she saw before blacking out was the flashing of blue and red lights above the cliff. By morning, the news broke. Maya Mitchell, beloved philanthropist and mother of two, presumed dead after tragic car accident on Pacific Coast Highway. Reporters gathered near the crash site as divers pulled twisted pieces of the black Mercedes from the ocean. Maya's purse had been found floating nearby, along with her diamond necklace, the one Brandon had given her on their 5th anniversary, but no body. "Currents that strong can carry a body miles out to sea," one officer told the cameras. "Recovery may take days, possibly weeks." Brandon stood by the crash site, perfectly composed in a black overcoat, sunglasses hiding his eyes. Cameras clicked as he pressed a handkerchief to his face, pretending to wipe tears. "She was my entire world," he said to the reporters, voice trembling just right. "She wanted to help everyone. I don't know how I'm supposed to go on without her." Behind him, partially hidden by an umbrella, stood Vivienne Ashford. Dressed in black, lips pressed tight to hide a satisfied smile. That night, the headlines read, "Heartbroken Husband Mourns Maya Mitchell, America's Angel of Charity." Donations poured into Maya's foundation, which Brandon quickly took control of, to honor her memory, he said. He made public appearances, gave tearful speeches, wore his wedding ring like a badge of suffering, but behind closed doors, he poured champagne with Vivienne in her penthouse, laughing as the city lights sparkled below. "She really went out with a splash," Vivienne joked, swirling her glass. Brandon smirked. "I told you it would work. No one survives that drop. The ocean current takes bodies miles out." "She's gone." Vivienne leaned close, running her fingers along his collar. "You're free now, Brandon, and rich. Don't forget that part. $2 million and full control of her foundation." He kissed her, grinning against her lips. Maya always believed in happy endings. Guess she finally got one. They both laughed, clinking their glasses together. Across town, in a dim clinic by the docks, Maya opened her eyes. Her body ached everywhere. Her left arm was bandaged, ribs sore, lips split and swollen. She could smell disinfectant, feel the stiffness of hospital sheets, hear the soft beeping of a heart monitor. She tried to move but winced in pain. The door opened and a nurse rushed in. "You're awake. Stay still. You're very lucky to be alive." Maya blinked slowly, confused. "Where's Clara?" "She's here." "She's stable," the nurse said gently. "A truck driver saw the whole thing. He pulled you both from the rocks just before dawn. You've been unconscious for 3 days. 3 days." Maya's heart thudded painfully. Brandon probably thought she was dead. He probably already started planning his new life. She turned her head toward the small television in the corner. The news was on. Her own face filled the screen. Maya Mitchell, beloved mother and philanthropist, presumed dead. Then the image cut to footage of Brandon standing near the cliff, holding a bouquet of white roses, tears streaming down his face. His performance was flawless, practiced, perfect. Maya's hands clenched the blanket. "He's crying," she whispered. "He's crying for the cameras." The nurse frowned. "You know him?" Maya didn't answer. She just stared, cold and still, as the image shifted to show another woman. Vivienne Ashford, dressed in elegant black, standing beside Brandon like a widow in waiting. And then Maya heard it, the reporter's voice. "Sources close to the family confirm a private funeral will be held this weekend, though no body has been recovered." Maya exhaled shakily. No body. They were going to bury her without a body. That night, she slipped quietly into Clara's room. The young woman was awake, pale but smiling weakly. "Mrs. Mitchell." "Shh," Maya whispered, taking her hand gently. "You're safe now." Clara's eyes filled with tears. I thought we were going to die. The car just went crazy. The brakes, they were gone, I know, Maya said softly. He did this. Your husband? Clara's face went pale. Maya nodded, her voice hardening. He planned it. I was supposed to be in that car. You almost died because of me. Tears ran down Clara's face. What are we going to do? Maya looked out the small hospital window toward the black ocean in the distance. Her reflection stared back at her, bruised, hollow, but alive. He took my name, my life, my children, my peace. She turned back to Clara, her voice steady and cold. I'm going to take his truth. For 2 weeks, Maya stayed hidden. She recovered in silence, planning every detail. Mrs. Chen, her grandmother's best friend, who ran a small dry cleaning shop, brought her clothes, food, and most importantly, information. The funeral's this Saturday, Mrs. Chen said quietly, handing Maya a crumpled invitation she'd pulled from Brandon's trash. He's marrying that woman right after, in front of your babies. Maya's jaw tightened. Sophie and Liam. She hadn't seen them in 2 weeks. Her heart ached so badly she could barely breathe. But she couldn't reveal herself, not yet. Not until she had everything she needed. Marcus, the truck driver who saved her, helped her track down the mechanic Brandon had paid to cut her brake lines. It took $5,000 and a recording device, but they got his confession on tape. Maya also gathered bank records showing Brandon's debts. Text messages between him and Vivienne discussing the problem being solved, and the life insurance policy he'd forced her to sign. Everything she needed to destroy him. On the morning of the funeral, Maya stood in front of a mirror. She wore a simple black dress. Her hair was pulled back. No makeup, no jewelry, just her face. The face of a woman who'd been declared dead. Mrs. Chen handed her the folder of evidence. You sure about this? Maya nodded. He tried to kill me. He's spending my life insurance. He's raising my children with his mistress. She looked at Mrs. Chen with fire in her eyes. I'm sure. The cathedral was breathtaking. The crystal chandeliers sparkled. White roses perfumed the air. Designer suits and couture gowns filled every pew. At the altar stood Brandon Mitchell in his custom tuxedo, looking every bit the perfect groom. Beside him, Vivienne Ashford glowed in her $50,000 wedding gown, diamonds glittering at her throat. In the front row sat 2 children. Sophie, 7, in a pink flower girl dress, looking sad and uncomfortable, and baby Liam, barely 2, playing with his bow tie, too young to understand he'd lost his mother, too young to remember her face. The officiant smiled warmly. If anyone has reason why these 2 should not be wed, speak now or forever hold your peace. Silence. Brandon smirked slightly. He'd won. His wife was dead, his fortune secure. His new empire rising from the ashes of Maya's grave. Then the cathedral doors exploded open. Bang! Every head turned. Gasps rippled through the crowd like a shockwave. Brandon's confident smile shattered. His face went pale. Cameras turned. Whispers erupted. Because standing in the doorway, backlit by afternoon sun, wearing a simple black dress and holding a folder of documents, was Maya Henderson, his dead wife. The woman he tried to murder, the mother of his children, alive. Brandon's mouth opened, but no sound came out. Vivienne grabbed his arm, confusion turning to horror as she looked from Maya to Brandon. What is this? Who is that? Maya walked down the aisle slowly, deliberately. Every step echoed through the silent cathedral. Sophie looked up and gasped, "Mommy!" Her tiny voice broke the silence. Maya's eyes filled with tears, but she kept walking. Brandon stepped back, shaking his head. No, you're dead. You're supposed to be dead. Maya stopped 3 feet from the altar. I survived, Brandon. I survived the breaks you cut. The ocean you thought would swallow me. The death you planned. Vivienne turned to Brandon, fury replacing shock. What is she talking about? Maya opened the folder and pulled out documents. Life insurance policy, $2 million. Bank records showing his debts. Text messages between Brandon and Vivienne discussing once she's gone, you're free. And finally, a recording. She pressed play. The mechanic's voice filled the cathedral. He paid me $10,000 to cut the brake lines. Said it had to look like an accident. Said his wife drove that route every week. Gasps erupted. Phones came out. Guests stood. Vivienne stumbled back, hand over her mouth. You tried to kill her? Brandon's face twisted with rage. You ruined everything. You were supposed to die. Maya's voice was steady, strong. But I didn't, and now the whole world knows what you are. Police officers entered through the side doors. Brandon tried to run, but they grabbed him. He screamed, thrashing as handcuffs clicked around his wrists. Sophie ran to Maya, sobbing. Mommy, you came back. Maya dropped to her knees, pulling her daughter into her arms, tears streaming down her face. I never left, baby. I never left. Liam toddled over, confused but reaching for her. Mama. Maya scooped him up, holding both children tight. Vivienne stood frozen at the altar in her wedding gown, humiliated, betrayed, watching her perfect plan crumble. Brandon was dragged past her, shouting, "This was supposed to be ours." Vivienne looked at him with pure disgust. You're pathetic. As police led Brandon out, cameras flashed. Reporters shouted questions. Brandon Mitchell arrested at his own wedding for attempted murder. Maya walked out of that cathedral, holding her children, head held high. The sun broke through the clouds, warm on her face. She'd been declared dead. She'd lost everything, but she survived. And in surviving, she reclaimed her life, her children, and her truth. Brandon thought he could bury her. Instead, she buried him. Justice wasn't just served. It was witnessed by everyone who ever doubted her. And as she drove away with Sophie and Liam singing softly in the back seat, Maya whispered, "We're going home. Not to the mansion, not to the life she lost, but to something better, something real, something built on truth, not lies." Brandon's empire crumbled, his reputation destroyed, his freedom gone. Vivienne's family disowned her for the scandal. And Maya, she returned to nursing, started a foundation for domestic violence survivors, became the voice for women who thought they had none. Her story went viral. News outlets called her the woman who rose from the dead, but to Sophie and Liam, she was just mommy, the woman who fought the ocean, survived betrayal, and came back for them. And every night, as she tucked them into bed, Sophie would ask, "You'll never leave again, right?" Maya would kiss her forehead and whisper, "Never. I will always fight my way back to you, because that's what mothers do. They survive. They endure. They rise. And when the world tries to bury them, they come back stronger." Maya Henderson wasn't just a survivor. She was a warrior, and her revenge wasn't just about destroying the man who tried to kill her. It was about reclaiming her voice, her children, and her life. And she did, completely, powerfully, unforgettably. The end. If this story touched your heart, please subscribe. Share it with someone who needs to hear it. Because stories like Maya's remind us that even in our darkest moments, we have the power to rise. Leave a comment telling us where you're watching from and what this story meant to you. Together, we're building a community of hope, strength, and unbreakable resilience. Thank you for being here. Until next time, keep fighting, keep rising, keep believing.